Think about the last time you knew someone was watching you. Maybe you were working and your manager walked past. Maybe you were at the gym and someone glanced over. Maybe you were just walking down a street and felt eyes on the back of your neck. And something changed, not dramatically, not consciously, but something shifted in how you held yourself, how carefully you moved, how much attention you suddenly paid to every small thing you did. You performed. You did not decide to perform. You did not think about it. It happened automatically, instantly, and completely without your permission. And the strangest part is that it did not matter whether the person watching you had any power over you, knew you, or was even paying attention at all. The mere presence of eyes, real or imagined, rewired how your brain operated in that moment. This is not self-consciousness. This is not ego. What you experienced is one of the oldest and most deeply wired phenomena in all of human neuroscience. And understanding it will change how you see almost every interaction you have ever had. Your brain has a dedicated system for detecting when it is being observed. Not metaphorically, literally. A set of neural structures that function as a surveillance detector, constantly scanning for the possibility that another mind is directed at you. Neuroscientist Uta Frith at University College London has spent decades studying what she calls the social brain, and her work makes one thing unmistakably clear. Human beings are uniquely, obsessively attuned to the gaze of others. We are, in her words, hardwired for mutual monitoring. And the reason goes back further than you think. For most of human history, being watched meant something. In a small group of 50 to 150 individuals, where everyone knew everyone and reputation was built slowly over years, being observed while doing something, working, eating, resting, interacting, was a live social event. What you did while being watched could raise your status. It could lower it. It could mark you as reliable or unreliable, generous or selfish, competent or incompetent. The stakes were not abstract. They were survival. And your brain built an entire monitoring system around this reality. Psychologist Norman Triplett noticed something strange in 1898. Cyclists rode faster when racing against other people than when racing alone against a clock. He was the first researcher to document what would later be named the social facilitation effect, the measurable, reproducible change in performance that occurs simply because another person is present. But here is what Triplett could not have known. The effect is not simple. Psychologist Robert Zionk at the University of Michigan spent years untangling the social facilitation paradox and found something that looks almost contradictory at first. The presence of others improves performance on tasks you already know how to do well, and it impairs performance on tasks that are difficult, unfamiliar, or that you are still learning. Same audience, opposite effects, depending entirely on your level of mastery. Why? Because being watched triggers a state of heightened physiological arousal. Your nervous system shifts gear. Attention sharpens. Processing speed increases. Stress hormones rise slightly. Your brain enters a mode that researchers call evaluation apprehension, a state of acute awareness that you are being judged and that the outcome of that judgment matters. For tasks you know deeply, this arousal is fuel. It pushes your performance higher, makes you more precise, more focused, more alive to what you are doing. For tasks you are still mastering, the same arousal is interference. The extra processing load crowds out the working memory you need to learn, to experiment, to make the small errors that are the only path to improvement. This is why you perform worse on tests when someone is hovering over your shoulder. This is why you stumble over words when giving a presentation on a topic you are shaky on, but speak fluently when you know the subject cold. This is why the most skilled athletes in the world often perform their best under maximum pressure, while beginners fall apart under even mild observation. Your brain is not sabotaging you. It is running exactly the program it was designed to run. It is just running it in a world where the audience is no longer a group of 50 people who know you, and the task is no longer something you have spent 10,000 hours practicing. And here is where it gets genuinely strange. The eyes do not even have to be real. Psychologist Melissa Bateson at Newcastle University ran a simple experiment in an office. Above an honesty box where people paid for their coffee, she placed a poster. Some weeks the poster showed a picture of flowers, other weeks it showed a pair of human eyes. That was the only difference. During the weeks when the eyes were displayed, people paid nearly 3 times as much for their coffee as during the flower weeks. 3 times. For a pair of printed eyes on a piece of paper. Your brain's gaze detection system does not check whether the eyes are real. It responds to the signal of eyes the same way regardless of the source. Cartoon eyes, photographs of eyes, 2 dots arranged in the approximate shape of a face. All of them trigger a measurable shift in behavior. Researchers have replicated this finding in contexts ranging from charitable donations to littering rates to how honestly people report their own behavior. The implication is significant. The social monitoring system in your brain is so ancient and so deeply embedded that it activates before your conscious mind can evaluate whether the threat is genuine. By the time you know you are being watched, the system has already changed what you are doing. This is the mechanism behind something anthropologists call reputation management. For early humans, maintaining a positive reputation in the group was not vanity. It was a survival strategy. A good reputation meant access to resources, to allies, to mates, to protection. A damaged reputation could mean exclusion. And exclusion in a world without modern infrastructure was a death sentence. So the brain evolved to be always on in its awareness of observation, to never fully relax its social monitoring, to treat every possible pair of eyes as potentially significant. Neuroscientist Chris Frith at University College London, working alongside Uta Frith, has shown through brain imaging studies that simply believing you are being observed activates a specific and consistent pattern of neural activity. The medial prefrontal cortex, one of the key regions involved in thinking about yourself and thinking about others, lights up. You begin to model yourself from the outside. You take a third-person perspective on your own behavior in real time and begin adjusting. You become, in a very real neurological sense, your own audience. This is something no other animal does in the same way. A dog watched by its owner may feel anxiety. A chimpanzee observed by a dominant male may modify its behavior. But the elaborate, recursive self-monitoring that human beings engage in, simultaneously performing for an observer while watching yourself perform, is a uniquely human cognitive feat. And it runs automatically, beneath conscious awareness, in every social situation you enter. If this is the kind of question you find yourself asking, why does my brain do this? Where did this come from? What ancient machinery is running underneath my everyday life? This is exactly what Paleo Psych is built for. Subscribe if you have not. There is much more of this coming. Now, back to the watching. Here is what this means for your actual life. The watched brain is a different brain. Not better, not worse, different. It prioritizes consistency over experimentation. It favors the known over the novel. It narrows its focus toward the behaviors most likely to generate positive evaluation and away from the risks that genuine learning and creativity require. This is why the most important growth in your life often happens in private. Why the version of you that practices alone, thinks alone, makes mistakes alone, is often the version that develops the most. The unobserved mind is freer. Not lazy, freer. It can afford to try things that might fail, to explore paths that might lead nowhere, to be uncertain without the cost of being seen, being uncertain. Your ancestors needed the watched brain for public life, for the moments when the group was looking and reputation was on the line, and they needed the private mind for everything else. The processing, the learning, the integration of experience that could only happen away from evaluating eyes. You still need both, but the modern world has collapsed the distance between them in a way that has no precedent in human history. Everything is observable now. Every opinion you express, every purchase you make, every project you share, every failure you have, exists in a space where it can potentially be seen and evaluated. The always-on surveillance of the ancestral group, which your brain evolved to navigate and occasionally escape, has become literally, technically inescapable for the first time in the history of our species. And your brain is running the same ancient program it always has: heightened arousal, reputation monitoring, evaluation apprehension, self-surveillance. in a world that never switches the eyes off. The next time you feel yourself performing, adjusting your posture, choosing your words more carefully, doing something slightly differently than you would do it alone, do not dismiss that as vanity or insecurity. That is 300,000 years of social intelligence, live and operational, doing exactly what it was built to do. It just cannot tell the difference between the group that decided your survival and the stranger who glanced at your screen for half a second.